Thank you, David. Uh, Friends, I'm just going to call all of us friends because I think we're all in the same canoe, as I said earlier this morning. Whether we like it or not, we're here because we're in that one canoe. And
We have to speak because it's not
okay.
It's already on.
Okay, so I really wanted to use the analogy of the baka canoes because really to get to your destination you have to have all hands on deck, and so the question really is not is the Pacific Islands committed to a sustainable future. The question is who's committed with us. And that's really the point I want to stress here. There's no doubt that those of us in the Pacific are facing tremendous challenge, tremendous stress on our environment. We want to do something about it, but many of the things we need to do are beyond our control, beyond our makings, beyond our resources. So who's willing to partner with us to get those things done? Now, on our own, it's important that we help ourselves first before we ask others to help us. So that's our message this morning also, is that we own the resources. We are really willing to protect those resources, make them marine protected areas or land protected areas. But then again, we saw Secretary Jewell of the United States Department of Interior. It's not enough to set aside these marine protected areas. The stress are still going to come from forces with climate change, global warming, acidification, all the man-made stresses, all the industrial and developed nation stresses that unfortunately affects all of us in the Pacific. So that's the reality. What can we do on our own? We'll do as Pacific Islanders, but then what can we do? Because we need partnerships. That's the question for our partners, and that's the whole purpose of being here.
Your Excellency, thank you. You made a declaration during the plenary about your marine sanctuary, which is the totality of your EEZ. And congratulations to Palau for Excellency, can you please share with us the reasons why? Why did you make that decision to make the whole EEZ a marine sanctuary?
So first of all, I'm not crazy. I want to assure you we are not crazy. We have a reason to do this, and really the main reason is it's food security. It's about food security. You don't have to be a fisherman like me to understand that the resources of the ocean are being depleted, small in sizes, small in numbers, and so that's the main concern. As to survive as a people, you have to have food security. Number two, it's a matter of economic security. You see, we receive about $5 million a year from the revenues of fishing. This against the backdrop of a $6 billion Pacific-wide industry. So the studies have shown that of the $6 billion, only 6% of that revenue is shared among the Pacific Islands, while 96% of that is actually being realized outside of Palau, outside of the Pacific. So who is benefiting from the resource? Definitely not the resource owners. It's the exploiters of this resource. So it's also an issue of fairness. Who is benefiting from this resource? Definitely not our people. Can we live without the 5 million? Yes, we can. That 5 million is a drop in the bucket compared to what we can do with ecotourism, with sustainable activities, utilizing our waters. We have made a conscious decision on that, so it makes sense for us. And of course, the last factor is that all Pacific Islands realize that we have to set aside marine protected areas. So Palau is willing to give up its 200-mile exclusive economic zone as our contribution to the health of the Pacific wild community.
Would you challenge the leadership?
Well, it's just not Palau. My brother here, of course, has made that announcement this morning, a brother from Kiribati. But the point is, it's not enough for just the three of us. We need more to make it happen.
Like to say something?
Okay, thank you. Just to follow on from what my brother said from Palau, yes, we are committed to doing what we have been doing. For us in Kiribati, the decision to close off Phoenix Islands protected area came about as a result of a number of considerations. One was the need to conserve. We accept, we realize that we have a huge, perhaps one of the largest fishery resources in the region. And so what we are experiencing is a very fast decline in...
No, just hold it closer to your mouth.
A very fast decline in some of the species, especially the more valuable species like big eye, yellowfin, skipjack. We have too much skipjack. We can continue to have that. But the problem is with the Persianas coming in, when they scoop in the net, they take everything, including the juveniles. And so that has been the problem. And so the decision to put aside the 400 square kilometers of ocean was to a large extent part of the conservation effort. And we are beginning to understand now the impact of what we did, because it's been proven scientifically that the Pipa area is a spawning ground, and it's where the young fish are spawned, and so that it will contribute to the long-term sustainability of the resource. But I can tell you, when we did this, I had a lot of opposition internally. I was challenged in Parliament. Our fishing partners continue to oppose it until today, because it will cut down one of their more fertile fishing grounds. It's because the Phoenix Islands protected area accommodates a lot of seamounts, and therefore with seamounts you get a lot of fish. Okay, so they're not happy about it. But the second reason was that with our frustration on the lack of progress on the climate change debate, I continued to be debating this. I've been doing this for more than 10 years, but nobody ever listened. Nobody listened. And in the years that I was talking about this at the UN, everywhere, people, even George Bush was talking about terrorism. And so one day I thought, I got my officials together. I said, how can we associate terrorism with climate change? And they said, oh, we call it eco-terrorism. So I did. In my next speech, I said eco-terrorism, but nobody still listened. But when we decided to close off that, it was part of our statement to the international community that what I'd been demanding of people to make it, to make a commitment, to make a sacrifice. And so we made the sacrifice. And so we've done that. As of the 1st of January next year, we will be closing off that area. But the point that I want to make, it's not easy to enforce. We don't have the capacity. We have one patrol vessel patrolling our 3.5 million square kilometers of ocean. We don't have enough. So I should have raised it there, that if anybody was willing to contribute the second, maybe the workers can do that for it. If you catch the boat, you can get the bounty on them. But that's been a commitment. In addition, what we have done also, as I announced this morning, I announced this earlier this year, is that we've closed off 12 nautical miles around each of the 5 southern land islands. And because that is in recognition of the very, very rich biodiversity. According to science, it's even better than the Phoenix Islands protected area. And so we want to preserve that. We cannot go beyond 12 miles at the moment. I think I'll be kicked out. I'll be voted out of Parliament if I try to do that. So what we have done is legislate for PIPA, but not yet for the Phoenix Island, for the land islands. That is the extent of our commitment so far. But the one comment I want to make before I end is that in spite of the commitments that the US and China have made, the problem is not over for us. The sea level will continue to rise on the basis of the greenhouse gases already in the atmosphere. So we need to keep working at the international community.
I think we'll come back to that point later on. We'll have more discussions on that.
Okay.
But perhaps we'd like to give the floor to Prime Minister Puna to share a little bit about your perspective on the sacrifices that needs to be made, especially with regards to the proposed areas that you have and the focus on deep sea mining with regards to the Cook Islands.
Thank you. First, let me acknowledge our voyagers around the frontier. You know, we're very, very proud of these people, these heroes and heroines who have given up so much in order to be part of this message here in Sydney today. So thank you very much. For the Cook Islands, we're lucky in many ways because we don't depend too much on fisheries for our national resources, for our national budget. In fact, we're very dependent on tourism. So that eases the pressure on our fisheries. But nevertheless, we are and we have gone along with our Pacific brothers because really it's a political thing for me. We need to be seen to be showing regional solidarity and working with one another, supporting one another. So that's the first reason. And I'm pleased that this gentleman on my far left is here today because he's one of my heroes. He started the PIPA, the Phoenix Islands Protected Area Project, and they actually sent their director to the Cook Islands to help show us how to do our marine park. Mr. President, thank you very much. So that's the first reason for the Cook Islands, regional solidarity. We need to be hand in hand with our brothers from around the region at all times. And the second one is that, hey, we feel good doing it because we can scream and make as many noises as we like, and the world really very slow to respond, if at all. And I'm sure that President Tong is well aware of the frustrations of trying to preach this new gospel to the rest of the world. He's been at it for 10 years or more, and I'm sure you detected the note of optimism in his voice this morning when he made reference to the significant announcement by President Obama and President Xi yesterday about China and the US working together on cutting back on gas house emissions. So in a way, MC, we're very fortunate in the Cooks that we don't have as much pressure. The pressure that I can tell you about is in relation to the final announcement I made about the other half of our EEZ coming on board to be part of our marine park. It was a very positive pressure. Believe it or not, one of the islands is my constituency island, who petitioned me to include them into a new extended marine park. And that is the kind of consciousness that is very much evident in my country. People want to be conserving. People want to contribute. And more importantly, they want to make a positive contribution. You know, I couldn't believe when our steering committee came back with their report that our community is up in the northern group, in the other half of our EEZ that's not currently part of our marine park, they want in. I mean, how can you refuse, you know, positive pressure like that? Yeah, I'm not going to refuse, and I haven't refused. In fact, at the Kerry Summit in Washington earlier this year, our team made an announcement that our government has committed to accepting the recommendations from our steering committee that we will incorporate our whole EEZ as our marine park for the future.
Prime Minister Puna, we have one question for you from this old gentleman, Vaka crew member.
First of all, I just want to say thank you very much as leaders of the Pacific to take time to off your busy schedule and come together with us. You know, in our families, we always look up to our leaders. The question is this: in your talk up there, you mentioned something about Polynesian promise. Can you please, Mr. Puna, elaborate a little bit more about, because to me this is very, very important about the Polynesian promise. What is it really?
Thank you. I knew I was sticking my neck out a little bit this morning. But no, I think it's important that we start with the building blocks. And within the Forum region, we have the Polynesian Leaders Group. This is the Cook Islands, Tahiti, French Polynesia, Niue, Tonga, Samoa, Tokelau, and Tuvalu. So, you know, together we cover a pretty large area of the Pacific. And although we haven't had an opportunity to talk about it yet, we have an opportunity later on this month, in the next couple of weeks, to get together both in New Caledonia and in Fiji, when we will sit down and I will try and persuade my fellow leaders to come along with the idea of setting aside protected areas within the country.
David, we have, before your question, His Excellency Remengesau needs to go. He's got a 12 o'clock commitment, and so if I can give him the floor for one last word before you leave.
Thank you. And I just want to share this with us because there is a wisdom in the setting aside of marine protected areas. Most people think that we're just setting aside X amount of square miles for the protection of those resources within that MPA, when that is not the scientific truth. The scientific truth has proven through Palau research, through the University of Guam research, through University of Hawaii research, and throughout the region, that setting aside, if you declare the whole reef open for fishing, the population of that whole reef will dramatically be depleted a lot faster. Then, if you set aside just 1/3 of that reef and make it a no-take zone, then the 2/3 you may think is smaller, but actually you end up harvesting more fish and more marine resources from that 2/3 over the same period of time than if you just open the whole area. That is the wisdom of the marine protected area reservation. So imagine this on the whole Pacific scale. The whole Pacific Ocean also needs 1/3 at least of a marine protected no-take zone in order for the tuna population, in order for the pelagic fish population, turtles, whatever you have it, to feel that there is a rest area, to feel that there is a nurturing area, to feel like there is a heaven for them to breathe and to recover. Like if you're driving on a long distance, you need that rest area to get back your strength. So the whole Pacific wide and the future of the Pacific can be better protected if each of the island nations in the Pacific have an MPA. Not for that 1/3 marine, but for the sake of the 2/3 that needs to be harvested, because we need fish, we need resources, but there must be a safe haven, and that's the wisdom of the MPA. Okay?
Thank you. Thank you, Your Excellency, Tong. Sir, in all Pacific fashion, we have to send you out in style. So, if we can, send you out in style.
very hard to compete with that, but just the last point I think is very important. Often in our region, the fisheries debate is framed around marine protected areas, anti-development, anti-fishing. In fact, it's promotion of fishing. So I think arguments like those, arguments about the value of marine protected areas for ecotourism need to be made more forcefully, exactly as we've just heard. But President Tong, if I could ask a question. I get the feeling now about 1 year similar to Copenhagen when we were going for the climate negotiation, big expectations. Now we're moving up in a year's time to Paris, similar expectations building. How can we learn from the past experience? How can we build on the initiative we heard yesterday from the US and China? How can we position the Pacific to get a better outcome of the climate convention meeting in Paris when we are looking for a legally binding agreement? I really value your advice and wisdom on that.
Thank you, David. I've been at this for quite a long time. I was actually perhaps one of the few leaders from a developing country. I was the only one from the Pacific because of the noises that I've been making. In a closed dinner involving about 20 leaders. There was Obama, there was the former president of China, and a whole lot of leaders. And I was listening to these leaders talking about economic growth, how the action on climate change would impact the economic growth. And I couldn't help it, I almost burst out, but you have to take your turn to speak. So I scribbled a note to the DSG that I'd like to speak. And so my comments were very brief. I said, yes, I can understand where you're coming from about your economies, but please also understand that I'm coming from a different angle. I'm talking about the survival of our people, and please, you know, this is not insignificant, it's important. And so I was listening to people like Sarkozy being very positive, and so that was in September. Copenhagen was about a couple of months later. And leading up to Copenhagen, I was quite optimistic. I thought there would be an agreement, but when we got to Copenhagen, it was miserably cold. And then Obama came, and of course, the news travels fast. We knew that he was not going to make a commitment. And during the meeting in New York in September, I approached the chairman, the upcoming chairman of the conference, the Prime Minister of Denmark. I said, Mr. Prime Minister, we won't get very far if we're going to just go there and deliver our statements. But is there a way that you can get interaction between leaders so that we can say what we need to be said, what we need to say? But that didn't happen until the last minute. And if those who were at Copenhagen will recall that there were meetings in the middle of the morning. I gave up. I said, no, we won't do anything. And so Copenhagen was a great disappointment. Nevertheless, there was progress. There was the Copenhagen Accord. Ever since I almost gave up, but I remember going back that evening, and there was people like yourselves from the civil society who would come and support us. And so I hosted them the dinner, and I thanked them for their support. And in the process, tears were coming down my eyes, and maybe it was the cold, I was miserable. I was very, very, very disappointed. And I came back away, virtually licking my wounds, but I couldn't give up. And so I've been keeping at it, and keeping at it. And I can tell you that what is happening now is very, very different from what was happening then. It's always been my contention that if the United States could come on board, then the rest would follow. And I kept telling the United States this over the years. But now that both the United States and China are on board, the rest will actually follow. I'm very, very, very confident that the rest will follow. And this is the kind of leadership that I've been calling for, global leadership on climate change. And we've been trying to lead, but they won't listen to us. But they will listen to the United States, they will listen to China. We will have a meeting with the Prime Minister of India in Fiji next week. We hope that the message of what's happened will communicate. We hope the message of what's happened will communicate to the leadership in Australia. and to the rest of the leaders in the international community. So I am very, very confident that we will have an agreement coming out of Paris, I believe. But again, I want to make that point again. It's not over for us. Those of us on the front line will continue to go down. So we need the international community to continue to address what is to happen. What are they going to do about us, if anything? But the point is, also, we've got to do as much ourselves. And this is why in all of what's been going on, I've always believed that we made mistakes in the past, and our biggest mistake was not to have come in much earlier on the climate issue. We should have come in much, much earlier together. We should have been solid. And I think we've always regarded ourselves as small, and therefore have a perception that we cannot influence the outcome of international events. And I think what's happened really demonstrated that we have no choice. We've got to be there, and we can make a difference. And I think the reality is on the climate change issue, on the oceans issue, we in the Pacific are taking leadership, have been taking leadership. Thank you.
Mr. Prime Minister and President, I recall at the forum meeting in Marshall Islands last year, President Loak said, we're not just standing on the shore waving our hands. In fact, we've seen from your commitments global leadership. We've seen renewable energy targets being achieved at a rate far higher than anywhere else in the region. So that leadership is fundamental, but others must join. But Prime Minister, any comments on this?
Thank you. In the aftermath of Copenhagen, there was a real danger that we would give up, as President Tong has said. And yet, we took things into consideration and we thought, what the hell? If the rest of the world not going to do anything, we will.
Media.
But that's what we thought. And it was during that time that we came up with some far-reaching policy commitments. You know, we made a commitment to convert our energy use from diesel to renewable. 50% conversion by next year and 100 by 2020. You know, people thought I was crazy. And yet I will have the last laugh, because by May next year, we would have 50% conversion. And immediately we will start on the remaining 50%. So where there's a will, there's a way. I firmly believe that. But as I said, you know, when we put these commitments into place, we weren't thinking about the rest of the world. Not after Copenhagen. We thought we'd do it for our own sake, because we know it's the right thing to do, and it makes us feel good doing it. And if the rest of the world catches up with us, well and good. If not, then we'll fade away happy knowing that we did our part. One of the important lessons I've learned from our communities up in the north that are not currently part of the marine park is that there is a very, very strong consciousness about the environment. Our people want to do the right thing, and they came back with clear recommendations. One, they want to be included into the marine park. Two, they want exclusion zones around their islands so that they can be guaranteed of sustainable supply of fish for their nourishment. And we have accepted that. So not only will they come on board as part of the park, but there will also be exclusion zones around each island. As President Remengesau said, it is to provide a haven for the fishes so that they can come and rest and breed and recover. What a wonderful idea, eh? Our people in the Pacific know everything about conservation. We're born with those DNAs. And we only need to activate those DNAs in order for us to realize and accept what we need to do as a region. And I'm so pleased that we are here together doing exactly what we need to do. Thank you.
This is our Pacific way of doing things, and this is our Pacific Talanoa. And one of the things, one of the great opportunities you have here, contrary to other countries, is that you have the opportunity to interact with your leader. So, questions. One. You can just stand up and say it. Stand up. Your name, where you from?
Hi, I'm Susan Kelly. I'm from the U.S. and I'm the captain of one of the vacas, Samoan vaca Naulofa. I'm also a marine biologist and I've lived on the ocean for the last 8 years. When everybody asks where home is, that's what I say, the ocean. So being a mermaid and living in the ocean and with the marine biologist background, the marine protected areas are very important to me. But the problem with them setting these aside is that you set them aside on paper. What do you do about action and enforcing these marine protected areas? And part of that problem also with having that enforcement, and what I'd like to know how you plan to enforce these areas, is if it is by patrol boats and everything, then that's another huge issue, because then you have all these vessels using so much fuel and wasting it just to try to catch people.
Let's take 3 questions if you don't mind, and then we'll go. So you had a question and one other, then we'll hear from our leaders. Please introduce yourself.
Yes, my name is Eli Enns and I'm from Tlaloquid on the west coast of Vancouver Island. So I just want to say that I'm so pleased to hear the leadership. We're the Nuu-chah-nulth Nations on the west coast of Vancouver Island, and we've been struggling with the state control of our fisheries in Canada. And earlier this year we won a court case in the Supreme Court of Canada saying that we have rights to fisheries, something that we've always had since time immemorial. And I want to say that for us, we know that rights and responsibilities go hand in hand. So I want to say, my question would be, how would you engage with the indigenous communities along the coast of North America in the leadership that you're demonstrating? So thank you.
So one more question over here. Okay, we'll take the response then. Yep. So.
One here.
Thank you. Thank you, and good morning. My name is Jose Palazzo. I'm from Brazil, and co-founder of Divers for Sharks, which is a volunteer group trying to mobilize the diving community for shark conservation and marine conservation in general. I have been privileged to work directly with friends in Micronesia, and through them learn how much the Pacific is doing for marine conservation and for the planet. So I wanted basically to say that we are fully in support of what you're doing in our part of the world. Actually, I'm hoping to be an observer at the next PrEP meeting, taking there a pledge of Brazilian and Latin American civil society for our governments to do better on climate change, and be with you on that. And President Tong, I wanted to tell you, people are listening. We are listening. Our children and youth are listening. In fact, the names of the 3 of you are better known to my daughters than some of her relatives. Not only because I talk about you at home, but also because they follow and they love what you're doing, not to me, not to our generation, but to theirs. So be sure that we are listening and that we are with you in this. And thank you very much for all that you do for our planet.
Okay, all right.
Okay, thank you. Let me take the questions one by one. The challenge of enforcement, of course, is, and I mentioned this during my statement this morning, it's the biggest problem that at the moment we can't even police our EEZ. So we have a lot of illegal fishing, unreported fishing. It's all of this is happening. I believe in a very large scale in our part of the world, and I've often joked that we'd love to have bounty hunters hunt these people. Okay? And if they catch them, we'll share, because we find them. We confiscate their boats. And recently the last biggest catch was a vessel which was fishing in the illegally in the Phoenix area, and we caught it, and they paid $5 million for that. So we'd be happy to share it with somebody else if they would be willing to catch it. But no, we are looking not only at patrol vessels, we are looking at modern technology, we are looking at, with a number of, with Google Earth, we've been talking with those people. We are, and Palau, President of Palau is actually, they're experimenting with the US on some of the, what was formerly US military technology, the Sea Dragon. And it's very advanced. We're very interested in it, but it's still being piloted in Palau. And, but we want to acquire that, and it's relatively inexpensive in terms of the loss, in terms of resources. It would be worth our while to get it. So we are looking at a number of options, and but they may need to be combined with actual capability to arrest. Okay, so in this respect, the vessels. I should also let you know that we have existing arrangements with the United States in our eastern waters to work with the Coast Guard. And so once in a while, this is why the arrangement with the monument area is very significant. The one that we will sign with the US this afternoon is very significant because instead of stopping on the border with our waters, they can actually carry on and continue the work. And so we would be sharing what they're doing. We also work in collaboration with Australia and New Zealand, and also in the region. We have an arrangement under the Niue Treaty that the patrol capacities of neighboring states can actually go into other states. We're supposed to be policing each other's waters. So it cannot be done in isolation. It's got to be done in collaboration. So, but yet it would remain one of the biggest challenges that we will face. I think the second question was more indigenous rights. I think we all respect that because we're going to have trouble if we're going to tell our people that they cannot fish. They will die. So we cannot restrict access to our indigenous population, particularly within their own fishing grounds. And so I believe that that has got to be, we've got to be sensible about what we do. I mean, but I think the point that I want to make is my brothers from Palau and the Cook Islands, they have quite a vibrant tourism industry, whereas we, on the other hand, do not, because we're in the middle of nowhere. Okay? When you travel to Kiribati, you can't go on, you have to go back. And so we're very, and so tourism is not something that we're getting much return from. The revenue from the fishing industry, and again, I confirm what the president of Palau was saying, we're getting only 6% of the return. But because of the size of our fishery, we're getting close to 100 million. But that represents almost the total of our budget revenue. And so we cannot afford to close it. Not yet. We want to work towards that. What we would like to do is increase our participation in the industry so that we can value add. So at the moment, all the fish is caught in our waters, and we watch these dozens of carrier vessels with the fish being transshipped from the Persenas there. They never go ashore. But there's thousands and thousands of fish being transferred every day, and they're going directly to the factories offshore. What we would like to do is get this industry onshore, and we are gradually working to do that. We want, as part of this process, because if we could do this, then the pressure for us to fish most of the waters would be reduced. We can afford to say, yes, we will cut. We will designate more marine protected area. So that would be the way to do that. But in response to the last comment, I thank you for your comments. Maybe your kids can call us uncle also. But it's encouraging to hear that we are being heard as far away as Brazil. But it is countries like Brazil that need to hear, the leadership in Brazil, I have often said that people have compassion. Governments do not have compassion. All they have is elections.
Thank you, President. Just to come back to the first question about enforcement, I think there is a danger if we, look at the difficult issues first, we'll get hamstrung and we might lose the inspiration to get started. I think we need to take things a step at a time. And for me, the important thing is to get the processes moving, get the initiatives in place, and then we look at how we can make those initiatives work. That way we won't be discouraged by the obvious challenges that are out there. The second one, the rights and responsibilities, yes, indigenous people should not be deprived access to their assets. These are theirs. And that's what really warmed my heart about the strong representations from my communities up north, that they wanted to be discriminated in favor of. And the discrimination is reversed. It's against the commercial fishers that come and take our fish away. And so, if we put in place initiatives that favor our indigenous people, yeah, for sure, they will come on board and give us their support. Brazil, thank you very much. Tell your daughter it's Papa Henry. Sharks, hey, personally, I don't like sharks and I don't fancy swimming with them. But it is a cause, and it's a cause that we have adopted as part of our commitment. And I'm pleased that, as I announced this morning, we've had in place for the last 2 years a total ban on shark taking in our EEZ. You want to hear a funny story? Yeah, we've had so many Chinese fishermen fishing in our waters. But as soon as, and part of the condition is that they don't take sharks. But as soon as we put these conditions in place, quite a few of them didn't bother to renew their licenses. What does that tell you? Yeah, don't go and spread this, eh? Chinese are my best friends. There's one point that our voyaging elder here made that was very true. And for me, I have a real personal interest in that. And that is for leaders, to front initiatives like this. Yesterday was a very important day in our political situation back home. We had a by-election that could well determine the future of my government. I had a look at that, and I had a look at my young boys and girls that came on Moromoro 2 on our waka. And I made the decision that this is more important. That according to our tradition, Papa, that the leaders needed to be here to spearhead the initiative for the sake of our warriors and our heroes. I still don't know what happened yesterday. I'm not in a hurry to find out, maybe till after this media conference. But I agree with you, Papa. It's very important in our tradition for the leaders to be upfront, to lead the charge. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. The message from the opening plenary today was about passing on the message and passing on the torch to the younger people. And so, the last question, with all of your agreement, will go to one of the young people from the Pacific Island countries, if you'd all agree. And that person is Drew, and Drew will ask the question.
Mr. Mbuluvinaka, my name is Drew Slatter. I'm from Fiji and a crew member on the Utunialo Waka. First off, it's an honor to be here. Mr. President, you're like a rock star to climate change activists. A lot of us young fellas on the Waka are really honored to be here, and Prime Minister Puna. And we'd love to volunteer the Wakas to come and be bounty hunters for Kiribati. That would be awesome. Just regarding passing it on to the youth and incorporating traditional knowledge and traditional practices. You know, our ancestors knew how to sustainably manage their marine resources before science came in. And we were just wondering if there was a possibility in any way that ancestral and traditional management would be incorporated in any of this in your marine protected areas.
Uncle Henry's a bit jealous of not being a rock star. Actually, we know he's a rock star as well.
I defer to the rock star. But you know, actually, I'm pleased you addressed Mr. President as the rock star, because I favor gospel music.
Thank you. I'm truly flattered. But my engagement with the climate change has been something that I've done so passionately and with a lot of obsession as well. I think people believe that I've gone a little bit crazy, but I had gone a little bit crazy. As I said, I had to think of all kinds of ways of communicating the message. Sometimes I felt I've run out. And the only people that I've not been able to communicate with are the U.S. Congress. But I think I have a solution I've just come up by. I was at a meeting in Palm Springs recently, and it's always about climate change, action on climate change being inconvenient. And I said, no, let's make it the other way. Why don't we make it so that it would become inconvenient for you not to take action on climate change? And how would we do that? By branding all those products with a high carbon footprint as being items that would be either heavily taxed or not marketable. I think it's a way of changing. I think if they see it as if Congress can hear this, maybe they would change their minds. But you know, I believe that it's so important to engage the young people. You know, what we are going through at my age, you know, it's yes, I will. My term of office will finish next year, and the question is, how do we carry on this? And what has been so gratifying to see is what is happening this very moment. At the time we were talking about climate change, nobody else was talking about it. But over the years, as I listened to at the international forum, more and more leaders were standing up and talking about climate change. And I recall one meeting that I was in 2012 in Rio. And there was a leader from one of the South American countries speaking so eloquently. I was listening, but he was actually, don't never let it be said. He was actually quoting from one of my earlier speeches. And so my staff were very angry and said, he's quoting from your speech. I said, don't be angry. You should be happy. They've been reading my speeches. And so I think passing it on to the young people is a matter, of course, but I think we've got to do it consciously. And but again, I want to make the point that not many people were talking about ocean conservation just a few years back. But I've been speaking at these fora for quite a number of years, and I can see that it's gathering in momentum. What I wanted to avoid is continue to speak to people who believe. We need to speak to people who do not believe. And I remember being on radio here in Radio Australia, and it's a talk back, so people can ask you all kinds of questions. And I remember the guy in the station saying, you know, we won't take those from madmen. I said, let me answer the madmen, because those are the very people that I want to talk to. But I think what we want to do is actually engage with everybody, engage with especially the young people. I can recall my own experience because I'm a fisherman, you know, and I like fishing. Catching is part of catching fish is part of the life. But I think over the years I began to learn that you've got to catch what you need and let go what you don't need. so what I've been doing, Drew, is I've been taking my grandsons fishing with me, and they've been learning this to understand that they've got to be part of the process of conservation. In our own, we are, of course, I'm sure every country is doing this. This is part of the school curriculum. We've got young people, young children planting mangroves and telling their parents that, in fact, they are teaching their parents. Because over time, with change, I think maybe my generation have lost the conservation instincts of our ancestors because of the new thinking. You know, we are thinking differently. And so it's bringing back to the young people that is so important. And so what I'm hearing is the young people are going back and telling their parents, you know, that don't do this, because we're told at school that we shouldn't be doing this. And so it's gratifying to see this change, and I think we will do it. We can do it, but we must do it together. And I think from here on, look at the next one, and by the next time, you should be sitting next to somebody new, whom you have converted. Okay? So you are the army that we are looking for. You are the navigators. You'll be the army to go out and convert. It's like a gospel. Conservation is a gospel. So let us go out and preach that gospel. Thank you.
Thank you, President. In closing, I just want to make these comments. First, education is absolutely critical if the initiative, if our message, our gospel is to be sustained. We have to involve our young people. Last night at the opening ceremony, it was really a moving experience for me to see so many young people committed to the cause. Back home, that is happening for us. Apart from being part of our curriculum, the young people are also actively involved to care for the environment. Our National Environment Service, together with other NGOs, have put together a annual program that is called Lagoon Day. It is when all the kids, school kids, come together on an ocean front, on a beach, and they talk about lagoon conservation, what they can do in their own ways. And you know, that has really awakened a very keen interest for conservation among our new generation. So I am confident for the future that that is going to take hold, and we have new eco-warriors coming on stream to carry on the message. The President mentioned something before about financing and the political pressures that face leaders when they embark on new courses of actions, or what some might say radical courses of actions, as the two presidents have spoken about. I think that is one of the challenges, as President Remengesau has mentioned, that we need, you know, the whole world to come together. These countries that are so dependent on fisheries need to have some support, perhaps some innovative financing mechanisms that would allow them to reduce the catches that are being taken from their waters and not suffer as a country because of the loss of revenue. And I have spoken to Conservation International. They have many friends like that who are willing to come on board. And I can't wait for the day when that would happen, so that we can make decisions that are in the best interest of oceans conservation without having to worry about political fallout or financial shortages of our national budgets. So that's one of the challenges that I'm putting out to our international community. I know there's a lot of James Packers out there with heaps of money. In fact, a couple of weeks ago, we had the privilege of being visited by Mr. Rob Walton of Walmart in the US. He came through Kiribati, went fishing with the president, and I don't know whether he caught anything, President. But then he came to Rarotonga, only because he was interested in our marine protected areas and why we're doing what we are doing. So it's very good, very comforting to know that people with substance, very rich people, are also interested in what we are doing. and we're just keeping our fingers crossed that we'll have a couple of $1 million coming our way, Mr. President, sir, to help support the marine park and the initiatives that we have in place for oceans conservation. Again, to our Waka voyagers, all the very best. So proud to see you here in Sydney, and all the best. Perhaps you can take up the challenge from the President and set up a patrol system. Then the future of the voyaging society is guaranteed. But thank you very much, everybody. Pleasure and an honor to be here.
Just two requests, one for the Vakas to take up this important role, and one if I can come and join you when you do go. But I think we've heard clear messages, so I'm asking everyone in this audience to go out and spread that message, not just to the friends that are converted, as President Tong said, but those that aren't. Please do that, convince others to do that. Finally, to thank you so much for your commitment, your leadership, and finally, as we've heard today, for your clear inspiration. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, David, and we acknowledge David Shepherd, our Secretary, General Secretary for SPREP, who has agreed to kindly facilitate our session with us. And thank you very much, Your Excellencies. Thank you for the words of wisdom. And this will continue until you do depart the shores of Australia. And as we do in the typical Pacific style, we take you off in what is a Pacific style. Thank you. Put your hands together, please.